Welcome to Revelation Unraveled. I am your host, William Tapley, also known as the third eagle of the apocalypse and the co-prophet of these end times. On this program, I want to take another look at this horrible, sinister logo coming out of the Vatican, which they are using to promote their Holy Year of Mercy. And what they are actually doing is promoting the homosexual and the transgender agenda. And this is very, very evil. And a lot of you, my subscribers, put very interesting comments on my first video in this series, and I want to read some of them. And before that, I want to read what the Vatican says this image is all about, because they are totally misleading you. And this is from their press release from this past week. The image, created by Jesuit Father Marco Rupnik, shows one of Jesus' eyes merged with the man's to show how Christ sees with the eyes of Adam and Adam with the eyes of Christ. This is a total lie, because that is not a man which Jesus is carrying. That is a woman. And in a few minutes, I want to read proof of that, which my web manager, Marilyn from Australia, sent to me. Before that, I want to read some of the other comments, because they are also questioning the gender of the person which Jesus is carrying in this horrible satanic image. And here's what Martin Landers writes. The face of Jesus looks like a goat to me. Well, that's a good observation, Martin. Which would symbolize the devil. Very possible. Genesis 7:7 writes, that halo is a symbol for a nuclear war. And I think that is a correct analysis. Thank you very much. Alibaba says, it's satanic. It reeks of the transgender agenda. Alibaba, you are 100% correct. And here's what Rocky Slide 1776 writes. The two faces look like aliens. Well, that's an interesting observation. The man being carried could pass for a hermaphrodite. That's another possibility. From his right cheek down, there's the blade of an Arabic sword denoting decapitation. Well, I noticed that before my last video and I forgot to include it. That definitely looks like an Arabic sword on the left side of that image, just below the man or woman's face. Turning my laptop upside down, let's try looking at it upside down. The two faces morph into reptilian insect alien-looking things. Well, that's another interesting observation. I'm not sure they want you to look at it upside down, but Rocky Slide, I think you may be onto something, and those are all good observations. And Dusty Grady writes, this logo promotes homosexuality. Right you are. It has two men. Well, I'm not sure if the other one is a man or not, but they're presenting this person as either a transgender, a hermaphrodite, a homosexual, or a woman with a fake beard. It has two men looking lovingly into each other's eyes while pressing their faces cheek to cheek. It is quite disgusting and nauseating. I agree with you, Dusty Grady. It is disgusting. I hope there is enough pressure put on the Vatican by Catholics to remove this ugly logo as the symbol for their upcoming Year of Mercy. And now I want to get to what my web manager Marilyn wrote from Australia, because she gave some fascinating insights into the real meaning of this logo. She says the word merciful is an anagram of Lucifer with an M, and that is true. Merciful is an anagram for Lucifer with the addition of an M. Now that might not be significant unless we could find the letter M somewhere in that image, which would separate it from the rest of the word. And actually, if you turn it upside down, I think in the lower part of Jesus' garment, you do see what looks like an M. And that would indicate that they want you to see the Lucifer part of merciful. And now Marilyn writes, 3 satanic symbols are found in the logo. The anarchy symbol can be made out, the letter A and a circle. And that's true. The overall shape of Jesus with that sash around his waist forms an A, and of course the oval surrounds that. Anarchy means to abolish all law. In other words, do what thou wilt, which is the law of the Satanists. The sign of Lucifer can be made out when the logo is turned upside down. Okay, let's look at it upside down again. And you're right, Marilyn. The feet and the black strips behind the feet do make like a V shape, or in other words, the sign of Lucifer. Once again, I agree with you, Marilyn. And she writes, the all-seeing eye is found in the blue background. I think that's also true. And now Marilyn says, the most horrible thing I saw was in the halo, which looks like a lifesaver. Well, in my last program, I noted that the 2 yellow parts of that halo look like horns. In other words, this is an image of the false prophet. In the book of Revelation, the beast comes up out of the sea with 2 horns, and he looks like a lamb but speaks like a dragon. And I believe that's another interpretation. Now, Marilyn says that that halo is like a lifesaver. So let's take a look at lifesavers. And it's true, when we were kids, we had toy lifesavers. In fact, some of them look like ducks. And I believe that is what the artist derived that halo from. So if you take another look, you'll see the colors and the shape match that toy life preserver. And now comes the most interesting part that Marilyn speaks about, and that is the proof that that is a woman which Jesus is carrying. And here's what she writes. The person is definitely a woman because her index finger is longer than her ring finger. According to scientific data, the greater proportion of women exhibit this attribute. As a female, my index finger is longer than my ring finger. William, please check your hand. As a man, your ring finger should be longer than your index finger. Besides this, the delicate shape of her hand in the logo is that of a woman's. Okay, Marilyn, I'm going to accept your challenge. I'm going to show you my ring finger in my hand and my compared to my index finger, and I think I passed the test. It certainly looks as if my ring fingers are longer than my index finger. So if you would like to check your own fingers out, that's one way to find out if your hand exhibits masculine or feminine traits. Now, that's not always true. If your hands don't follow the rule, please don't go out and get a sex change operation, because it's not 100%. The point is, the artist in this logo is indicating by the hands that this is a female. He has fairly carefully pointed out that the index fingers on the figure that Jesus is carrying, those index fingers are longer than the middle fingers. The artist is making it very clear that this is a woman. That beard she is wearing is a fake beard. In other words, this logo is promoting the transgender agenda, the homosexual agenda. And that is what this synod in October is going to be all about. They want to give Holy Communion to people living in mortal sin. That will take away the validity of the Eucharist. If a priest has the intention of giving the Eucharist to people living in mortal sin, it will not be a valid Eucharist, because the church will be telling him that he must do that. This will promote a crisis in the church. This will be the great schism which has been prophesied to afflict the church in these end times. And a lot of Catholics at that time are going to have to recognize that Pope Francis is indeed the false prophet. And if you would like more information, visit my ThirdEagleMedia.com website, where you can see real sheep instead of the phony sheep that Jesus is carrying in this ugly, ugly logo.